This is it. 1 week. One singular week stands between us and knowing every single team that'll be a part of the Overwatch Champions Series Season 2 International Playoffs in DreamHack, Sweden. The third and final team from North America, plus EMEA, and even Pacific and Japan all wrap up by the end of this week, but most importantly of all, Korea is entering their final stage, the final tournament of the year. Starting this Friday, 6 teams go in, only 3 teams make it out for a chance to keep their hopes and dreams of hoisting up a trophy alive. And coming into this tournament, it's hard to say if things are going to be normal or if it'll be absolute chaos like what we saw in the previous weekend in both North America and EMEA. In today's video, we'll try and come up with an answer for ourselves with a quick breakdown, preview, and predictions, as well as my power rankings for this upcoming tournament. Generally, we're going to skip a lot of what we'd usually talk about in these types of vids because we literally just talked about these teams' journeys to get to the playoffs a couple of weeks ago, and obviously not much has changed. They got 1 week off, and now they're playing again. The meta seems to be the same as well, so we'll try and keep this short and to the point. So obviously, without a shadow of a doubt, the top team right now, the favorites to win the tournament, or bare minimum get on to Stockholm, it's Crazy Raccoon. They're the team you feel the least concerned about going into this thing. They absolutely took care of business in the Korea tournament, and there was never a shadow of a doubt that they would lose after watching them play. They've been playing and depending on those Sombra comps more and more as the weeks go on, and Lip seems to be getting more comfortable in that role, reawakening his true form from years past. Even though Sombra's played in such a different way and the heroes changed up a lot over the years, it still feels like he has a clear advantage over some of these other teams. Some teams don't even bother matching the Sombra because they know that it's futile. When this team plays full-on dive, they're a nightmare to deal with, and I think just adding in another comfort pick to the mix makes things significantly worse. Meta's in a good place for this team. It always feels like they're a few steps ahead when they get to play that fast-paced game, and Lip feels very sharp right now. I think giving him a couple of weeks off has really helped. You can tell that he is super locked in, super focus mode for that guy right now, and he just keeps showing improvement as the weeks go on. I think as things stand right now, he's put himself in the best possible position to stay locked in for the playoffs, maybe find a solution that maybe wasn't there in previous shortcomings, and this time seal the deal. As usual, it seems like Crazy Raccoon's only real opposition is themselves. They hold all the cards. The only thing I'll say is they don't quite look as strong when they're making the substitutions mid-game. I don't know if it was just me, but watching them play Wei, the team that pushed them the furthest, they just felt weaker when Max was in the lobby. That just seems to be a common trend with this team a lot. And clearly they're more comfortable with the dive than going more so for that Zarya look that Max is obviously very comfortable on and very known for. Maybe with time that will improve. Give it some more time to practice, for this tournament and for Stockholm if the meta holds up how it is. Maybe things end up going better, but that doesn't seem like a strong suit of that team, and I am a little worried that if they get stuck in their ways, if a team really ends up hot on the right day, that could end up costing them a series, but other than that, not too concerned with the team. So moving on to the number 2 position, I think I'd be crazy to not pick T1 in this scenario. They've been holding on to the number 2 spot in this region for several months now, and it does not feel like much has changed. It's always a little worrisome that they could choke against certain teams, not even just Crazy Raccoon, but in general. But I think right now they're in a really good place just knowing what the rest of the opposition is looking like. There's not much that stands in their way of being a top team and potentially meeting Crazy Raccoon in a grand final yet again. And the meta's right where it needs to be for their comfort picks to be effective. We're seeing a lot of Wrecking Ball be played, and that's right up DreamHack's alley. You could argue he's the best ball on the planet right now. You gotta love the amount of Freya we've been seeing over in NA and EMEA as well. That's a promising sign for this team. That's been one of their comfort picks for a long time. And to a certain extent, they can still get away with playing some of the Wu Young. With what is being played in the game right now, T1 hold a lot of the cards. A lot of the stuff they like to play is kind of just the standard right now over in Korea. And that's when this team plays the best. When you have to match up to their game, their speed, that's when things go terribly wrong for the opposition and they're able to dominate. We've even seen them do it against Crazy Raccoon a bunch of times throughout this year. Obviously, the recent match isn't a great example of it, but historically, they've done a great job against that team. And if you can beat those guys, you can beat basically anyone. Now, is that to say this team has no real notable flaws? No. Definitely not. In fact, some of their flaws are definitely worth addressing and could be major points of concern. First and foremost, this team isn't exactly the most flexible. They've gotten a lot better at it in recent months, but generally speaking, when you throw them out of their comfort zone, when they're not playing a comp they're as well practiced on, that's when things go wrong. We saw it a lot in the mid-season championship and how they ended up being a disappointment. It's when you can make certain things go in a different direction that they just look weird at times and they don't necessarily trust their own abilities. So if some of these opposing teams can play their bans right and their map selections correctly, that could throw them off guard a little bit, and we could see a potential choke in the mix. And that kind of gets me into point number 2, which is that this team usually underperforms in the super meaningful matches. They didn't play well in the midseason, we saw it happen in Stage 1, didn't even make land then, and they've just had a lot of second places in general, just like the Philadelphia Fusion back in the day. This T1 team doesn't always do the greatest job under pressure, and obviously this is going to be the biggest moment of the entire season. There's 3 openings, so it's not as bad as it could be, but still, all it takes is one loss for things to suddenly spiral out of control. Coming in at my number 3 spot, it may be a little surprising just because of how things went in the tournament, but I'm still pretty confident that Falcons are a top 3 team in this region. We've seen this story many times before, where they choke or have a bad shortcoming late in the season, but then they just flip the switch in the meaningful tournament and they clutch it out. It's happened so many times. I mean, earlier this season, it looked like they were dead to right, but then they went on a tear, dominated the LCQ, and won the freaking mid-season championship. It's hard to see why this time would be any different. They don't have Stalker, sure, but we've already seen them press on without Stalker. They've already been okay. Every single time I doubt this Falcons team, it always bites me, and I'm not going to fall for that trap ever again. As far as I'm concerned, this team could go on a finals run for no apparent reason. They more than have the talent to do it. You know, a finals proper, when he's going all out, he's a very difficult man to stop. It has looked a little weird seeing him and Merit together in like that Sombra dive duo, but generally it hasn't been that bad. I just think that the execution down the stretch in certain scenarios led to their downfall in that way match. Generally, there are a lot of things that I liked. I thought Merit Sombra was way better than I ever could have imagined compared to the previous time I saw it. So overall, I don't think there's too much reason to be concerned about this team. The only thing I'll say is, if they don't show up on the first day, they're literally doomed, because they actually have to play through a play-in just to even get to the main tournament. So it's not to say that there's not a lot of pressure, that this isn't a scary scenario, but Falcons have already done this a lot, hence why I'm maybe not as concerned as other people may feel about them currently. This team can be frustrating. They have a tendency to play under their potential, but they are clutch. That's one thing you've got to give them. When things matter, they usually wake up, and I wouldn't put it past them to do such a thing again. That gets me to my number 4 team, that being Way. Some people might even argue they could beat number 2, let alone number 3 above Falcons. I think a good argument can be made, and I wouldn't even be mad if you said such a thing, because genuinely right now, they're in probably the best possible scenario. Much like T1, they thrive on that Wrecking Ball composition. They thrive on the chaos, playing Sombra, playing Tracer. They've loved the Wu Yang it from time to time as well too. Everything is just clicking for them at the perfect time. They've already gone on a tear once before. They were able to shock the world and make the mid-season championship. They made that land. They've already shown what they're capable of before. And hopefully they've grown from the experiences of their shortcomings in the last stage, and they're ready now this time. With how they pushed Crazy Raccoon better than anybody else, I wouldn't necessarily put it past them. This is a young team, they're still trying to navigate the pressure, but you gotta give them a lot of credit for being resilient. They've been relevant in every stage of Korea this season, and I'd argue they're playing their best Overwatch yet. This tournament was a good example of what this team can be capable of, at least maybe someday. Some people might argue right now, but either way, I've loved how this team has looked. I think that both Mioguru and Aid have become really good players. There's been a very consistent stream of development with this roster, and right now they have their best opportunity ever to make some noise and pull off one of the surprises of the year. There's reason to feel optimistic about this team's outlook, but for me personally, I'm just not ready to commit to them just yet. That's why I have them at number 4. Compared to these other top dogs that I've already discussed, it just feels like they fall short. Yeah, maybe they've already beaten them a couple of times each, but the problem is that when it's crunch time, this team hasn't proved much of anything yet. Maybe this time could be different compared to the midseason championship when they really underperformed, just because the meta's more so where they want it to be. They don't have to worry about that lack of comfort. That shouldn't be an issue this go-around, most likely. The problem is that they're still a young roster regardless. Inexperience has costed many teams throughout all of the region's big games, very winnable games. It's a very common trend that sometimes I think goes under the radar, and Wei could be one of those teams. I'm hoping they prove me wrong, but it's a tough uphill battle. There's a lot of pressure on a young team to win the biggest game of their careers like this. It's no joke. Yeah, you want to have the mentality of playing like there's nothing on the line, because all the expectations are on the other teams. That's what you'd want. But it's not exactly that easy. I'm concerned because these other teams that I've talked about, they've already done it before. They've already done a lot of the hard stuff, and now we have to try and join the club. And if there was ever a time to make it happen, it should be now. In a meta that favors you, in a year where a lot of teams have come out of the woodwork to pull off upsets. We've already seen a bunch of them in NA and EMEA, and now it's up to Wei to continue the trend. Who I can't say the same for, though, are our other teams remaining. At 5th in my power rankings is undoubtedly Zeta Division, and even that I don't feel that good about. If we're being for real, Zeta Division suck. They are just a bad team, and I'm tired of talking about them. I don't know how they're not good. Is it the coaching? Are the players just tired? I don't know what happened, but after Violet left this team for whatever reason, they've just been on a downward spiral. You'd think a team with all of these great players would be right in the thick of it, right in the mix to make it to DreamHack Sweden, but we're at the point where we see them as underdogs and highly unlikely to make it that far. How are we saying such a thing when a team has Pelican, Bernard, and Alfie on it? What kind of world are we living in here? Just look at how they did in the regional playoffs. They did nothing of note. Yeah, you beat Onside in the first round, but you should beat them convincingly. And what happened after that game against Onside? They got absolutely molly-whopped by T1 and Wei. 4-0 losses in both of those games. Neither were even close. You couldn't even put up a fight against some of the relevant teams. And in that third place match against Wei, it might have been one of the most one-sided games of Overwatch I've ever seen at the professional level. And that's saying something because we've seen some really, really bad teams in OWCS this year. And hell, even before that, I've been watching Overwatch Esports since 2017, and I haven't seen that many games as bad as this one. It was absolutely pathetic, and it destroyed any final glimpse of hope this team may have had of being good. They're absolutely screwed, and it is an absolute war crime that they got a first-round bye in the play-in aspect. How does that even happen, man? I'm done talking about this team. Enough's enough. They should consider themselves lucky that there's even one team worse than them in this bracket. That being the number 6 team in my power rankings, aka Onside Gaming. This is the one team Zeta were able to defeat in the regional tournament. And even though that game was 4-1 score-wise, it felt like some of those maps were pretty close and could go either way. So in the result, these teams were able to rematch. The next one could go differently, but that seems pretty unlikely knowing that Onside are going to have to get through Falcons first if they want that rematch to happen. Not much to say about Onside. I'm really happy they made it here, but this is where their journey ends. They're just outclassed in every facet, and that's just how things go. Somebody else had to make this tournament. There had to be a 6th team, and it is unfortunately them. And that pretty much sums up my thoughts on all the teams and where I'd rank them, so let's quickly get into a prediction as to how I think this tournament goes. So first and foremost, 3 teams got to make it out of this bracket and go to DreamHack Sweden, and based off of my power rankings, you probably know where this is going. It's going to be Crazy Raccoon, T1, and Falcons in all likelihood. Where the dark horse team to look out for, I think if anyone were to pull off an upset, it'd probably be them. But I'd lean more towards Falcons getting in over them. I think Falcons are going to clear through the qualifier to get into the tournament. Neither Onside nor Zeta should give them much trouble at all. Zeta sometimes like to beat Falcons for no apparent reason, but that's usually in the meaningless regular season games. Anytime these two have met in a meaningful game, Falcons have won every single time without fail, so I doubt it goes any differently this time, just knowing the trajectory of these two teams. I'm also going to have Crazy Raccoon take home the grand final to win yet another tournament consecutively. I just think right now they are much stronger than everybody else. They showed that to me in the recent tournament, and I don't think enough time has passed or any real changes have occurred to make me think differently. They still should be the overwhelming favorites to win this thing. They feel refreshed with Lip out there, and I think they'll ride that momentum straight into Stockholm, where they're going to try and take care of business and finally get their rings. As for who they're playing, I decided to go with Falcons. I know it's kind of unoriginal. I've been going with this theme a lot lately, but there's just something about Falcons and T1 that doesn't sit right with me if they were to meet each other in the lower bracket portion of this thing. Falcons just always beat T1 every single time. Donghak cannot beat his former Atlanta teammates. Fielder and Chio beat him every single time. And if there was ever a time for T1 to make that reality change, it should be now. But I don't know if I trust them to do so. Falcons just have their number. It's a mentality thing. It's a mental game. I think they're probably going to play Crazy Raccoon twice, and it's going to result in 2 L's, because Crazy Raccoon are kind of just in their element right now, and I don't think anyone's stopping them, barring any miracles. It could get pretty scary in that lower bracket, especially if like Wei were to pull off an upset against T1, let's say. That could make things interesting, but I think T1 fans are probably going to be pretty happy with where they ended up getting in this bracket. If they had beaten Crazy Raccoon, they would have played Falcons in the first round, or I guess technically whoever makes it through the play-in, but I'd expect it to be Falcons, of course, and knowing how they've been their kryptonite, that could have been a real issue for them, because then they'd be 1 loss away from just straight up not making it to Stockholm. I think they have a real advantage here of beating a less experienced team that they're just better at in the same type of meta. And once they get that 1 win, they're safe no matter what. Obviously, you want to try and win a grand final, but if you're able to win 1 game in the upper bracket, top 3 is guaranteed, and that is obviously enough. I want things to be different. I'm hoping to see some chaos, because that's kind of been the theme of Stage 3 if you look at all of the regions in their totality. But something just tells me it's better to believe in what you know. The teams that are well established, and in that case it'd be Crazy Raccoon and Falcons, and T1 who have been pretty consistent as well this year. But yeah, I think I'm just about done rambling for one video. I'm excited for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I hope you guys are as well. We'll see if any chaos happens. Let me know if you think anyone's going to defy the odds down in the comments below. And make sure to give the video a like and subscribe if you haven't already, as it helps out the channel a lot. Peace out.